Hello and good evening, I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. We thought we'd start the show today with a look at international news. Now, US President Donald Trump has been heavily criticized for halting funding to the World Health Organization. On Tuesday, Trump accused the WHO of mismanagement and covering up the spread of COVID-19. He claimed the WHO had failed the US people and that no more funding will be provided until a review is conducted within 60 to 90 days. Now, the US is the WHO's single largest funder, to which it gave more than $400 million in 2019. That's about 15% of the WHO's annual budget. The Gates Foundation is the second largest funder, and just after Donald Trump's funding cut announcement, the Gates Foundation said it would spend an additional $150 million on COVID treatment and vaccine research, raising its total commitment to $250 million. There you go.
Melissa, of course, you know, any organization, and WHO included, are not fallible. They're not infallible.
Not infallible.
You know, and so the question is, whatever's lacking and has been lacking,
yes.
You know, the question is whether this response is adequate. And in fact, could it be detrimental to the global fight against the pandemic?
Well,
I think that's one thing.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, the WHO has come under fire for some aspects of its handling of the pandemic. I mean, it's been accused of being too deferential to China, but is this the right time to then, I guess, conduct a review into the WHO's performance over COVID?
Yeah, because there's a question of Donald Trump's performance itself within his national context. The man who's so full of rancor doesn't inspire confidence, I think, when it comes to the integrity of his response, right? Why is it that he's chosen now to attack the WHO and pull funds? So that aside, I think it's very interesting, Melissa, to think about how leadership has emerged, and good leaders are bad leaders, or good leaders with bad responses, bad leaders with perhaps good responses to this particular crisis.
Definitely.
And Donald Trump, because, you know, well known for a huge number of videos now, you know, the kind of meme status where he's attacking journalists, he's refusing to answer questions. Not a man that inspires much confidence.
Well, who does inspire confidence? According to some news reports, the countries with the best coronavirus responses have women leaders in common. So we're looking at you know, some key traits like decisiveness, for instance, in South Korea, among the first and the fastest response, and also from New Zealand, where clarity and decisiveness have shown to be saving New Zealand from the worst of this pandemic. And Iceland also turning to tech to offer free COVID testing to all its citizens. I mean, elsewhere, we're just doing testing for those who are symptomatic, whereas Iceland is across the board. Everyone gets tested, and they use tech to track the public so that they haven't had to lock down schools or the communities.
Well, Melissa, because, you know, a subject for your show in the future is a female. When this you know, crisis passes, I think that the issue may be not so much gender, but a kind of certain demeanor, and I think it's got to do with the population itself. Different countries, it seems, and their populations allow for different things. Different citizenry respond to, say, things like the lockdown. So, you know, compliance with social distancing. South Korea just conducted an election under these conditions because people agreed to the general terms, which included that if you're positive, that you would not take public transport to the polling station, you would only walk to it or take your own car. These things, some people in some countries would be agreed to say, well, you know, it's my right to take public transport. Here, people willingly in South Korea making sacrifices for the larger community.
That's right. Well, let's turn our attention now to India, where the leader of the Tablighi Jamaat group has been charged of culpable homicide not amounting to murder. This was for holding a gathering last month that India's authorities are claiming led to a big jump in COVID-19 infections. The 191 Malaysian participants of the Tabligh event in New Delhi have now been quarantined in hospitals there, and critics of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government have cautioned against fanning communal tension by laying the blame for the spread of COVID on the Tablighi group.
Yeah.
But yes, but
Melisa,
the response is that.
Yeah, the idea of laying the blame on in an area as vast as India on a single cluster is extraordinary. But because it seems completely understandable in the light of Narendra Modi's administration's record on attacking minority groups. And so, the fact that he's gone after the Tabligh movement, the fact that he's got this, because Muslim minority organization in India is no surprise. It seems like all over the world, politicians have continued with the worst traits. So Viktor Orban in Hungary taking control of his country, basically allowing parliament there to make him a dictator. So, and this, of course, is very consistent with his pre-COVID demeanor and political responses.
Well, if anything, the pandemic has given leaders an opportunity to either step up or to fall short. And I think this is where we're seeing leaders being tested, not for COVID, but for their leadership skills in providing decisiveness, decisive action, in clarity, in communication. These are the things that we're looking for in our leaders.
And values. And so you see that also many memes comparing Boris Johnson with Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand. One saying quite happy to see, the herd immunity and the cost of that, wreak havoc in Britain, whereas Jacinda Ardern saying, that she would not accept any deaths coming from this particular crisis.
Yes.
So very different values, and we see that also in politicians, not just abroad, of course here too, whether they model adequately the values that the government states in policies, like social distancing, to the extent that our politicians have failed, some of them anyway, have failed to provide a good model for the citizens, is a question that I think we'll have to debate for a long time.
That's right. Well, okay, we're going to take a quick break, but after this, we're going to focus on home-based learning. We'll hear from a Ministry of Education representative about how students and teachers can get the best out of home-based learning. Stay tuned to consider this.